Good evening. My name is Bahman, and this is Independent Nation talk show, a show that talks about the electoral process, democratic process. We usually bring a couple of our guests who are the representative in some of the wards and running for their constituencies. Tonight we are lucky to have two candidates from two neighboring wards, 29 and 31, and shortly I will ask them to introduce themselves. But before that, I have an announcement tonight, and I had a couple nights ago, I had a call from one of my previous guests by the name of James Sears, who runs in Ward 32, who called me and he told me that apparently some of his videotape of his debate in all candidates debates was pulled down off the YouTube, and apparently Rogers Cable Communications claimed that there is a copyright infringement on that. The problem I have with this issue is, first of all, the all candidates debates is public event. Secondly, sorry about that.
You mean?
It was you?
No, it wasn't.
No?
It wasn't.
Do you want to
But
start
there was
over?
just by dumb luck it was.
Can we?
Yeah, we can start.
Sorry about that.
To rescue me now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Bahman, and this is Independent Nation talk show. This show is about electoral process to get people involved, engaged to the democratic process, and help their candidates, their constituents, and themselves as well to improve their governing and their city as well. We have two guests tonight from neighboring wards, 29 and 31, but before I ask them to introduce themselves, I have some sort of the concerns. One of my guests who runs for the Ward 32 called me a couple of nights ago. He was one of my guests a couple of weeks back, and he told me that some of his videotapes from YouTube was pulled down by Rogers Communication, apparently because of the infringement of the copyright. But the problem I had with the issue was those videos was taped in a public church for the all candidates debates, and there are some so many things wrong with that story. One is it is public affair. People have to know and see their candidates. Second, the person who videotaped that event did not exhibit or had any sign of the Rogers communication or introduce himself as a member of the Rogers communication. Third, the church that the debate was held is partly subsidized by taxpayers' money, which brings it to the kind of the public property. And fourth, I'm not sure if the proper permits was given to Rogers Communication directly for that taping. But the problem was not these particular instances. This is a systematic problem across the nation in Canada, citywide, provincial, or federally. When I say a small, not physically, but unknown candidates are being disfranchised by major mainstream media and major corporations like Bill Media or Rogers Communication and so forth, and in print, Sun Media or Torres Star, and never given the opportunity to be introduced to their constituencies. And for me, that is completely miscarriage of the justice when it comes to the democratic process as well as electoral process. And just a few Manchurian candidates are being selected and being supported by mainstream media. I just wanted to take out of my chest this matter. Now, getting back to the show, why not we start with Jimmy? Can you introduce yourself, full name, and what you do, and why you're running briefly?
Absolutely. So my name is Jimmy Vlachos. I'm running for City Councilor in Ward 29. I've lived and worked in the area for 20 years, primarily as a realtor. I love the ward. It's a pleasure to live there. We've got great services, excellent access to the rest of the city. I'm running because I don't receive the type of customer service that I should be receiving in the ward. I'm a little unhappy with the direction the city is headed in when it comes to budgeting, spending money, infrastructure projects. I think we could be doing a lot better. I've certainly planned to do so. And I'm dissatisfied with our current political leadership consistently leaning towards taxation or service cuts as the only means to handling our budgetary concerns. There are revenue streams out there. You need to know where to look. I know where to look. I plan to introduce those revenue streams to the City of Toronto. Easy ways to make money, putting money in the coffers of the cities without digging in your pockets. That's really what I'm about.
Mark?
My name is Mark Turnbull. I'm running in Ward 31, and I got into politics primarily because I got such little response from our councillor on a particular issue.
Which is?
Well...
Or which was?
I'll explain it more fully in a moment. But what that taught me was that if you have an issue that doesn't coincide with the councillor's perceived vote count, then you will get no representation. And at that point, it becomes taxation without representation.
That's correct.
I'm a homeowner. In my particular situation, we happen to live on a block where we front on an avenue and back on another avenue. And on our back avenue, we are fenced from the avenue. There is no particular good reason for it. There is no physical barrier that should have us denied access to our own properties. And in fact, on this particular avenue, we are the only block in the ward where the people are disallowed access over the 15-foot boulevard in order to access their properties. We got a whole block petition going. Almost unanimous in that everyone on the block signed it, asking for the option to have access, and that petition was duly ignored by the incumbent. I received an official form letter rejecting the premise of our petition, and the incumbent didn't even take the time to meet with us. And it was that experience that taught me that at the councillor level, we have to get back to a situation where our councillors represent the people to the city,
Exactly.
instead of the councillors representing the city to the people, or even more disturbing, when the councillors on the premise of representing the city to the people are actually working on their own accord.
Well, I have had many guests over the last 10 months that we started this show. And most of them, they had very similar situation, that not regarding the property, but regarding the councillor do not return their call, or they don't pay attention, and then which begs the question, which I bring it up to you. First of all, both of you is the first time you're running.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
I helped Mary Fragadakis run in 2010.
Regretfully.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was a great experience.
Yeah.
It was, and it was certainly important to me running now.
Yeah.
But I sat down. I met with her. I had issues as well surrounding a property that I own in Danforth, regarding truck traffic, people parking on sidewalks, the private waste being stored in a laneway abutting my property, and figured a good way to go about the process and finding some remedy was getting to know my local politicians, speaking with them, and when I met with Mary, I asked some questions regarding her platform, regarding taxation, land transfer tax, property tax increases. As a realtor, I'm against them, but as a citizen and a taxpayer, I'm against them as well. And she echoed my concerns. That you can't. 4 years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. The land transfer tax is not a good thing. It's going to cost jobs. It's going to cost money in the long term. The property tax issue, we keep raising them. This is horrible for fixed income individuals, for the elderly living within the community who want to stay in their homes. So I was like, oh, this is fantastic. Like, these are the types of answers I want to hear. So I called all the people I sold homes to. I knocked door to door. I did it sometimes with Mary, and I helped pull the vote on election day. I drove people who couldn't otherwise get to the polling stations to vote. And not only did I not get help or support with my issue, which I documented well, given the chance to vote on the issues that were important to me and that she canvassed on, she voted against what she said she was going to do. She voted for tax increases.
Before I get to Mark, I just want to do a follow-up on that. Have you ever confronted her over the last 4 years that this is what you told me, or that is what was my understanding, and how come such a shift, such a paradigm shift to her position?
What I have done, I took part in the Rogers debate, and I raised concerns about the customer service aspect. Now, the Rogers debate was very structured. So you'd get asked the questions, you had 30 seconds to respond, you had a minute to form a rebuttal.
Yeah.
I think we dealt with 4 issues. Poverty, transit, the elderly. Yeah, it was
institutionalized.
Yeah, it was just faraway responses. My experiences with her before that were trying to find resolution for the issue I had with the trucks and the garbage and the waste and the noise, and so I had met her as her being my representative and me seeking help. There's a debate tomorrow night at the United Church at 126 on O'Connor, and I'll be raising those. I'll be attacking that directly.
No, the reason I say that because based on my experience provincially or federally, when I bring some of the issues in debates with the other candidates, especially incumbents, they always agree with you, and as soon as they get elected, they get their order from their boss. It is first time you're running. What are you hoping to accomplish?
Well, ideally, I'd get elected.
That is. But again, you are not alone, and I am pretty sure your budget does not even match a small percentage of Mr. Davis's budget.
As I said at one of the ward debates, it's a bit like standing in front of a tank on Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
What I'd like to see done, regardless of who gets elected, is get some fundamental protocols in place to engage the public. There's a couple of ways that can be gone about. One is to have some guidelines for petition protocols, a minimum number of signatures, and the petition would have to be addressed. It would be obligatory for the incumbent to address that petition.
In the city hall, like
in the
among,
city.
yeah, okay.
Right. And if the petitioners were not satisfied with the outcome of the incumbent addressing the petition, then the incumbent should be obliged to take it before council, whether or not they agree with it. Because this becomes the fundamental problem. When incumbents' partiality starts to come into the issue, they fundamentally break their oath of office. The first words out of their mouth once elected are that their oath of office states that they are to be impartial on all issues and treat people and things fairly. And yet that seems to be the first thing that they forget. So the first thing I'd do to address that is put in place petition protocols, and even if those couldn't be bylawed, at least practice those myself. And the second thing that I think should be incumbent upon the incumbent is to engage their ward by having regularly scheduled town hall meetings, so that you knew that the third Friday, the third Saturday of every month, there would be a town hall meeting at such and such a place. Or each place could be posted so that they reflected the various neighborhoods in a given ward. And at those town hall meetings, people would come forward. I'm sure they'd be raucous affairs. They'd probably be very entertaining. Rogers would probably find it to be very good TV.
Yeah, I doubt it.
But at those town hall meetings, anyone that wanted to petition council could do so through their incumbent. And we could build concrete mechanisms for people to engage the incumbent, and concrete mechanisms so that the incumbent couldn't ignore their concerns.
It is very ideal. Let me just toss it toward Jimmy. What Mark says is very ideal, but when we look at the voters' turnout, we look at it about 50 or 55% in the city last time, provincially about 51%, federally about 60% last time. So we see that almost half of the people half of the eligible voters don't even engage, don't leave their home to go to vote. Yeah. Having said that, if such an ideal would be possible, how you want to get people involved to go to those town hall meetings?
Well,
if you agree with that kind of the engagement of the public in their affairs.
There needs to be, you're absolutely correct. There needs to be public engagement. And every year, I mean, this election is a clear indication. I think we had over 100,000 people show up to the
160.
Yeah, wow.
Advanced
so
poll.
The advanced poll, I think before that was 77, 80,000, something like that. So with a rise in frustration, with the rise in the understanding that we should be demanding more from our political representatives, people are coming out. And one of the things that you see, one of the things I've noticed, Dornock, as I'm sure you have, you start speaking with people and they tell you about the types of frustration that you yourself are having. So I think we'll just naturally we'll be seeing a greater community involvement. Now, what stagnates that is getting people into office who don't do the things that they said they were going to do, and it's the easiest thing to do. I mean, you get two choices. You can choose what you're going to say as a politician, and you can choose how you're going to vote when the matter comes to the floor. And we see a disparity of that in reality, and that makes people feel like the system just doesn't work. Like, why am I going to vote when you come to my door, you say these sweet things, and I hear it all the time. I'm sure you do too.
It breeds apathy.
You're not like one of those other guys who's going to tell me this story and then get to City Hall and forget about me.
I've been there.
It breeds apathy in the populace. And one thing about these ideas to engage the public is that all it takes for a little guy to want to go out and engage his politician is if he ends up in a problem, either with the city or a neighbor or someone else, and then give that man an opportunity. Say, any third Saturday of the month, you can go and talk to your incumbent, and that will engage them. They will engage themselves if they feel that there is some possibility of a positive outcome for their particular problem.
Let me get you guys a little bit in a little bit more complicated matter, because since you brought up people get frustrated, both of you frustrated when the career politicians go to their door, give them all sort of the promises, and as soon as they get elected, we witnessed provincially and federally, because it's a party system. But in the city hall, at least on the ballot, there is no name of the party.
Yeah, there should
However, there is a party, kind of the unwritten party affiliation among
and there
councillors.
And not even unwritten.
Yeah. Let me, before I ask my question, any one of you are card carrier of any political party, or have you ever been?
No, I'm not, and I've never been.
Well, just the Turnbull party.
Okay, that is your party. Okay, that's it. It's like my party that I have.
Fantastic.
Yeah. My question is, when, for instance, at the time of David Miller for 7 years, we had more NDP in the council during the 7 years. When Rob Ford came, which mainly I argue it was not because of Rob Ford, it was because of frustration of David Miller and union deals and all of that. They said, okay, either against him or for him, so they moved to the against him, so we had Rob Ford. And Rob Ford comes, and still we have about only maybe less than 5 or 6 councillors that are so-called conservatives. Most of them still are NDP, and we have a little bit of liberal background. How do you, let me play devil advocate. Any one of you get elected, go there. You have 44 people. You go to your constituents says, you put that meeting, the meeting people show up and say, hey, Mark, we need this thing done, or Jimmy, we need this thing done. You go and put the petition or any form of the complaint in the city hall. You have 43 other people who really don't like you because you are not part of the gang, so to speak. How do you want to deal with that? We'll start with you, Mark, and then we go to Jim.
The first thing I might point out is that as a new candidate, brand new to the process, we are told that we are not to speak of any party affiliation. We're not supposed to align ourselves with any particular party as a new candidate entering into it. And then, of course, you get incumbents, as in my ward, Janet Davis, that openly stand right up and ally themselves with Olivia Chow, for example.
Of course.
Fragan Adams is clearly NDP.
Yes,
It's out in the
NDP.
open, and you can see it on how they vote when they get to City Hall.
The incumbents are the worst violators of the non-partisan nature of city politics, or the way it's supposed to be non-partisan.
Yeah, I think you misread them. They say don't talk about it, but you can show it.
Perhaps, but the point is, what they're trying to steer us away from is partisan politics, because they don't want to turn City Hall into a 3-party camp. And very much what you saw in the last council was Ford and allied conservatives against
Liberal plus the NDP,
Davis and allied NDPers. I think there has to be a sense of a certain element of common sense that comes into it. And I'm not talking about Mike Harris slash and burn common sense revolution. I'm talking about just basic common sense, in the sense that when something comes on the floor, when a vote comes to be, when they ask you to cast your vote, I think they have to get away from the idea of, oh, well, my 10 other NDPers on council, they've all voted for this thing, so I have to stay the course and vote with them.
That's the way it works. You can go down and look at the voting record.
That's a bad way to run our city policy, because you don't then have independent thinkers actually acting independently. You've got independent thinkers acting as a group.
Party politics have no place at City Hall.
Well, my question again, that come back to that.
Yeah.
You know that. There is
Yeah,
the reality. You see, there is a reality that you have to deal with it. It's like your family. You have a reality. You have
Sure.
good members,
That's a
bad
good one.
members, but you have to deal with them.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a brother, sister. The reality is, one of them is more accommodating, another one is more difficult, but you have to maneuver. I am asking, any one of you has any strategy if you get to the, and I hope you get both of you
Sure.
again, as I always say, if my guests get there, I am very happy. so what I'm saying is, do you have any strategy to maneuver? To make
Yeah.
I think all you could do.
let's say, Jimmy,
Thank you.
go.
Just first, I'm going to answer that question.
Yeah,
I just
go.
want to deal with
Yeah.
a couple of things quickly.
Yeah, sure.
There is no space for party politics down at City Hall. Your ward counselor is there for your needs, regardless of whether you're conservative, NDP, liberal, Green Party. It really doesn't matter. The ward representative is your spear and shield for the issues that the community has. That's it. So you don't want people down there who represent a party. You don't want counselors at City Hall whose branding material, whose message, whose signs, whose fundraisers were supported by a party. Nobody gives money for free. Maybe an uncle at Christmas time, but aside from that,
That is not for free. You have to tell him I love you.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You can't just take the money and be like, yeah, next year on time, I want the money. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not unconditional. Well, it's certainly not unconditional in politics. So you can bet that where there is funding and where there is money, there will be the requirement for payment of that when that individual makes it to City Hall. That's a big concern of mine. It's a big concern of mine with Mary Fraggot-Atkins in the NDP. It's a big concern of mine with Dave Andre in the Liberal Party. Now, when it comes to having an agenda and not being considered a team player at City Hall because you don't fall into the nook and cranny of one of the affiliates down there, I think the strength of the idea will carry merit. It's important to remember that you're still dealing with human beings. You can deal and negotiate with people sometimes on a logical level, sometimes on an emotional level. So although people are affiliated with groups and parties, you need to find the way to communicate to that person in the way that they will hear you. And I can tell you, as a realtor at 13 years in the market, that I've had to work with any number of people to do the right thing for my client. I don't get a choice to pick, I like Tony. Tony's a good guy. That's who we're going to do the deal. No, I got to work with whoever brings the offer. And City Hall should work that way. And you need people down there who understand that and can work with people. So you present the ideas and find a way to communicate.
And to say,
I had a guest suggested it be a gunpoint, but
I don't know about that.
how about you?
I was going to say, to segue from that, I think what happens all too often is, and this enters into the concept of term limits, because what happens all too often is that when they get in there for a long duration,
Which I'm going to-
because they've always disagreed on politics and on their basic stances, and then you would have a real fair fight between entrenched incumbents, and you'd open up at least one ward to level the playing field for new blood to come in.
Do you agree with the term limit?
Absolutely.
What is your rate? 2 term, 3 term?
I think I'd lean closer to 2 terms rather than 3.
Okay.
It's public service. It's not public entitlement.
Yeah.
Go in there, try and make the changes that you can make. After that, there are other political avenues for you to explore, perhaps federally, provincially.
I don't want.
Run for mayor.
Yes, I don't want.
You got a lot of options.
Yeah.
Go there, be effective with the time that you have. Try and implement the changes that are important to your community, to your constituents, and look towards the future and other ways that you can contribute. There's stagnation with people being in a ward for too long a period of time, and also you have issues with brand recognition. People just vote for the name they know.
Of course,
you know.
of course.
It
Olivia
makes it-
Chow, she was the councillor
Brand
and become
recognition,
MP
party
and
back.
come back again.
Party back war machine.
Yeah, and it's very difficult for anybody with fresh and new ideas coming up in the scene to raise the funding, to do what's necessary to do to combat that type of brand recognition.
Yeah.
And you should just be moving
Just
on.
buying 5,000 signs and getting them all. getting them all
Well, and every
But,
one of
yeah.
them claim to
If
be
I might-
environmentalist. by
If
the
I
way.
might make one more point
Sure.
about that, the reason I say 12 instead of 8,
Yeah.
because many people are advocating 8-year
Oh, it's just your prerogative, yeah,
term
that's
limits.
it.
But the dinosaurs, what I'll call the dinosaurs on council, never pass that. And those are the people. It's the councillors themselves that
So you
have
want
to
to
pass
weigh
this
out
bylaw.
in first and then.
Well, the point is that you have to make it palatable enough
I
to
see
the
the
people
strategy.
who
Yeah.
pass the bylaw.
And then later
And
on we can.
after 12 years, two things happen. One is they, for every year of service, they get 1/12 of a year of severance. So after 12 years,
You
you
get
kick them
1
out
year.
the door, they still get a full year's salary as a severance check.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, after that length of time, they have built that brand recognition. They've got the face recognition. They've got the party back war machine. They've got their League of Volunteers. All of those things put together, when they take that name advantage, they can move it to another ward, and in theory it would translate into another ward if their politics are any good. After 8 years, they're not really as well established. But after 12 years, there'd be a number of them that would say, you know what, I could go and beat that rookie councillor in that other ward.
Yes, but the argument with that is it's not any more public service, and again comes back to the to choosing this job as a career,
Yeah.
and we want to
Well,
get rid of
you'll
that.
never get rid of career
Well,
politicians.
of course we can't, but as long as there is a voters' apathy, of course we can't.
Yes.
Right.
Let me be a little segue to a couple of the issues for the citizen. We heard constantly the issue of the transit. First of all, how prominent is it in your wards? Because both of your wards, they have subway. So, except the buses, they are delayed. I've experienced that. I don't drive at this time, so I just use public transit. I just want to know, based on what you hear.
It's an issue. It's an issue for sure. And it's not only transit, it's just congestion within the city on a whole. And each individual, depending on how they make their way through the city, is unhappy. I mean, that's the general. You drive a car, you're unhappy. You're on a bicycle, you're unhappy. You take the TDC, you're unhappy. It's a shame that we've burnt the last 40 years and done very little in terms of improving infrastructure.
30 years.
40, I said.
40?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said 4.
No.
30, I remember.
40. 40.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now we're playing catch up, and everybody has got plans and maps and ideas.
Everybody has a packet with his money.
Yeah. Look, the reality is, unfortunately, nothing is going to happen in the short term. Nothing certainly that's going to last the test of time. There is a reason why, if you go to London, Tokyo, or Japan, they have trains. They work. They're underground. It allows.
New York.
New York,
Yeah.
They didn't build it overnight.
No.
I mean, that's been happening on a consistent basis. People have been putting money into that system and expanding it on a consistent basis, which is what needs to happen here. So it's fantastic that, finally the water is boiling and people are, getting out and up in arms and talking about how we need this change. Are we going to benefit from it in the next 6 months? Probably not. It's a long-term project. That's the reality.
I think there's a couple of things to look at here. First of all, I think the last 3 elections, maybe 4 elections, the prime issue before the mayoral debate has been transit, and to some extent, the selection, our mayor selection, will reflect what the people have decided they want for transit. But what's more important, I think, is to get the transit once we have settled on some kind of sound and logical plan, get it out of the hands of the politicians so that every 4 years it doesn't come up again as the hot button issue of who you're going to pick for mayor, depending on how they feel about transit. And what's got to be done is to get our transit plan entrenched in the official plan so that it takes it out of the election conversation every 4 years.
Then there wouldn't be any excitement over the election, do we?
I just wanted to touch on something quite really quick. Any plan that we have for subways and infrastructure, just by necessity in terms of budget, and certainly with the TTC and transit as it branches out into other parts of the city and the Greater Toronto area, we're going to need provincial help and provincial financing. So there needs to be a conversation with the province, and we're not having that conversation, or not very effectively at the present moment. Another thing to be aware of is if we look around the country and we look at other major cities, if we look at Vancouver, for instance, the average subsidy per rider there is $1.68. In Montreal, it's $1.16. So every rider goes on, whatever they're paying for transit, the province is ponying up another $1.16. In Toronto, we get 78 cents. I mean, as a province, as a city contributing to a province, we're contributing far more than Montreal is, far more than Vancouver is. You know, we make money. We give it to our province, and it doesn't give it back. Not in the way that it should be, not in the realms that it should be. And we need to address that, and I plan to do just that.
Too much money on gas plants.
Let me just shed a couple of things based on what you said here. I was reading an article a couple of years ago, it was a year and a half ago, in one of these Metro News or something. The TTC last year paid $62 million for the overtime. I am not very emotional, man. I am just more logical and calculated.
62
so
million.
I divided 62 to, let's say, if average employee gets $40,000, that means they could hire more than 1,500 employees that year. When you said we are paying more today and why, when then you touched on the issue of the dialogue with the province, we had the last time Karen Stintz here, and Karen said very specifically that the final decision is provincial because they put the money. Now we have different people. We have Metrolinx, which is Crown Corporation provincially. Then we have politicians in the province. Then they have people who deal with the contractors, either NDPers or Liberal or Conservative in the City Hall. And these people cannot communicate with each other. And then we have the chair of the TTC or CEO of the TTC that keep raising the fares. And then lowering of course, the service, as I experienced myself. The question comes back to the original question we had about 10 minutes ago about how to work together. But the point is, if these things are resolved tomorrow, then we wouldn't have this discussion, would we?
If they were resolved tomorrow.
No, what happened about mayoral candidate or anything like that. I want to get back. What is the second issue after TTC? What is the second issue among your constituents beside TTC?
I'm not sure that I'm prepared to start ranking them.
The most complained one. They say, okay, we need transit. We need what?
A big one in my ward, but it's only in the southern half of the ward, is parking. Parking. We have...
which comes back to the congestion, which is could relate to that.
And this you can trace exactly to the current incumbent, because it was her spearheading the issue of entrenching cars on the street. We now have a situation where 12 community councillors sit around among their 12 different wards. They probably have, I have no idea, 100, 200,000 houses. And they now think it's a good It's taxpayers' money well spent to sit and pick over parking permit applications one at a time. 12 councillors at however many $100 an hour each, picking over permit applications of 100,000 or more houses, one at a
For
time.
parking overnight.
For parking, to get front pad parking in the southern part
on the
of
street,
Ward 31.
on the street.
Or
And 29 as well.
and 29 as well.
Pad parking.
And same, sitting on the same community council. There's a very simple way to overcome that. I've linked on my website a local company that makes a plastic grid that gets you essentially install it the same way as asphalt, but instead of an asphalt top, you put down a plastic grid, then you fill that with gravel, or you can fill it with dirt and seed it. So now you're parking on grass, 98% permeability, and it guts the premise that they spearheaded it on,
The water.
they spearheaded the thing, that it's the shedding off of the driveways that causes our floodwater concerns, and therefore you can't have parking on your front lawn because of shedding groundwater or shedding stormwater.
And are these professional opinion, or is this just the opinion of the city council?
What? What a professional opinion.
The issue of the shedding on the water.
Oh, it was what Janet Davis drove the whole.
No, but what I'm saying is what she says is based on the professional opinion of someone who is gardener or who knows
I
water.
don't know what she drove it on. As
No.
far as
It's a
I know,
position. It's a position at the city.
it was her political position,
position.
and she argued for it. And she's very proud of what she's done to safeguard our stormwater concerns by, in part, banning front pad parking. But the premise that she's banning it upon is a false premise. And then on top of that, the real reason between you, me, and the fence post is that she doesn't like front pad parking because she prefers to entrench the cars on the street, because permit parking is one of her favorite revenue tools. So you've got to...
So there is an angle then here.
The angle for her
Yeah.
is, and this happened right on my blog. She held a parking meeting, and the only thing she put on the table, what was going to solve our parking problem, was if we simply all bought into buying permits, then it would be problem solved. But permits don't get the cars off the street. See, if you get the cars off the street and you get them up on the lawns, first of all, you can put them on a permeable lawn. Then you improve city services, garbage collection,
And
snow plowing,
less
congestion. It solves so many problems. And the first kid that gets killed darting out between two parked cars is going to really highlight the idiocy of this current policy.
Well, like a traffic signs, they have to see a few bloods on that crossroad till they decide to put a
That's right.
light.
And that's exactly what's going to happen.
What is the second major issue in your ward?
I'm not going to deal with a ward-specific issue.
Yeah,
what I'm going to get at a grander concern, and certainly it's shared by several constituents in my ward, certainly in yours, and in all the wards throughout the city. It's going to be property taxes, taxation, the foolish spending of money, and revenue streams. And they're all related. So in the last 8 years, on average, we've increased taxes annually by 2.5% of property taxes.
Property tax, okay.
Yeah, and the argument is, hey, it's with the rate of inflation. What else can you expect? Well, there's a lot of fixed income people out there whose income is not inflated with inflation, right?
Okay.
So it's unsustainable. If you have a $9 billion budget and you have 2% inflation, you're looking at $180 million that you got to come up with on an annual basis, if that's not compounded, right? If you raise the tax rate by 1%, it's worth $23 million. So what do? You raise the tax rate 9% annually to fix the problem? No, you can't tax your way out of the problem. So you need to think of another solution. One of those solutions would be to spend money wisely. We spent almost $28 million on pay duty police officers. Now, if you've got a couple of police officers at a Jays game or something like that, I understand. You might need to make an arrest and you can't call, the cruiser to show up. I got you. But to have a man with a gun stand around with 8 construction workers just doesn't
Watching
make...
a hole in the ground.
Oh, they claim that they are off the duty and they paid by the construction company.
Sure,
or
but
something.
who is the construction company contracted by? The city?
Of course.
And, who is the construction company going to build for the protection? The city.
Who's
so
ultimately
if the
paying?
construction company is paying but billing the city, then we're paying. Even if it's a condominium corporation downtown. If there's construction going on, you can have security or you can have a crossing guard. We trust crossing guards with our kids. We can't trust them with construction workers.
No, because then the money comes back to the motive.
And you're looking at a fraction of the cost. So even in condominium developments downtown, you have a police officer out there. Great, you're building the condominium corporation. Who cares? Well, the purchaser is now paying for this as well. Not necessary. You can offload that expense. And I'd much rather see police officers, and I'm sure they would prefer it too, doing the job. You're talking about highly trained individuals who are armed and can offer assistance in very important circumstances. We should be utilizing them in that way, not putting them out there to stand in front of a
Actually,
pylon.
I agree with you because just a few months ago we had that World Cup, the soccer game cup. I'm not really. We had some sort of the World Cup.
Oh, yeah, sure.
One night, because I live on Danford, I will go for my walk, and I noticed at least 10 police cars, something around 24 police officers, standing, chatting in the middle of the street, while some people in some of those Greek restaurants watching the soccer game.
Sure.
Now, the first question came to my mind was maybe something happened here. But when second night I went out, it was the same thing. Every time that there was a game that involved Greek community and Greek community get together and go to
It happens in college town too, in Little Korea.
Or
Yeah.
Italian in the,
Yeah.
but the same scenario. Why do we need that many utilize that many officers to just
but the police budget
crowd control of the soccer game?
Right, and the spending on the police budget is just one of the things that we could address.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you can hit another one.
Just as a small example, like a $1 million or less example, there's a structure at the corner of Dawes Road and Vic Park.
Yes.
And that structure faces all the people that come out from a road called Ferris Road. You might know where that is.
Yes.
Right across from the structure.
Yeah.
So all the people that come out from Ferris Road,
across from No Frills.
right, just west,
south
just
of
west of Dawes, of Dawes Road,
Yes,
and
yeah,
almost at the
that
intersection.
triangle thing. Yeah.
There's quite a big subdivision in there that the major artery is Ferris Road, leading them out to Dawes and that intersection where this structure stands. It's a barn-like timber frame structure. Being a carpenter and something of an infrastructure specialist, I would have looked at the thing and guessed that, if I took on the contract to build that thing, I could have come in at $150,000. Apparently it cost $395,000, and as I talked to the people down Ferris Road, there's some of them that seem to feel that the thing actually came in closer to $900,000.
Well, that is normal for the government.
Sure. But the point is, all the people that drive out, all the people that drive out this road, and they look at that barn-like thing every day. It's a nice architectural structure, but if that's costing us $1 million, there's ways that we could have better utilized
Well, you
money.
mentioned that at the beginning of this conversation, the common sense. Common sense is not as common as it's supposed to.
We can't make a cement here that lasts longer than 9 months.
And plus, we just passed a provincial election with all sorts of scandal with the Mars, with the hydro, with the e-health, and taxpayers' money being spent like these people are the drunken sailors are just because it's not their money, by the way. Having said that, how far we are from the end of the program? Okay, so we are getting. I want to touch in very small things, and after that, you have each one of you have a minute or so to talk to your constituents. Just very simple question, and that is because you mentioned about the term limit. You mentioned about the working of together among the councillors. What is your prediction about the mayor in this election? Because so far we have about 65 candidates. Only 3 of them were really darling of the media.
Any fair
media, and for sure, based on the public brainwash, one of these 3 will be the mayor. So, where you are? What is your favorite? Put it this way.
Are you asking me how I'm going to mark my secret ballot?
No. I'm saying what is your favorite? Well,
is that not asking me?
I
I'm going to mark my secret ballot?
No, you can.
It's the number one question when I'm not going to. Well, it's not the number one question, but
I will say this.
Yeah.
For me, Olivia Chow is out. If you take a look at my website, freecountrycanada.ca, you will see the story and you can read the history of this one block problem that got me into it.
Yes.
It's a block left behind.
Well, it was too long for me to read all of that, but I saw some of the titles.
I don't believe the nanny state. Nobody gets left behind.
There is no such a thing.
It's bafflegad. It's hogwash.
Yeah.
And she is hand in glove with Janet Davis, who is in this election.
Oh yes, with all of them, with Mary Fragidolis. Yeah.
So Chow is out. That leaves Ford and Tory. I'm waiting on Tory's list because he has promised to do as Chow and Ford are going to do, to turn over their list of contributors, so that people can examine that list prior to the election.
Do you think the people do that?
Well, I for one would be very curious to see what kind of names of elitism pop up on that list.
Well, he's not as elitism as Mr. Tory, is he?
No, that's what I'm talking about. Is Tory.
Yeah. Oh, Tory.
I'm talking about Tory.
I thought you said Doug Ford.
No.
Okay.
No. Ford is.
Already released the...
Yeah, he had said he will, as did Olivia Chow. So I'm waiting to see that, because to a certain extent that Tory to me reeks of an elitism that we want to get away from in politics. We need to get more quote-unquote real people into politics.
Before I ask Jenny, do you think it makes any difference who will be elected?
For mayor?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it makes a lot of difference, yeah.
Okay. So it leaves John
it leaves Ford, and what you've got is a Rob Ford platform without Rob Ford's
with a Doug Ford face,
without maybe so much of the circus.
Yeah.
So, quite honestly, I haven't yet decided between Tory and Ford.
No, I don't want your decision. I just wanted to know what is your favorite.
No, he's like a politician.
No, listen, it is 65. You see, the day. Have you voted yet or not?
No, not yet.
Okay, when you go and see the list of 65, then you could, because voting is emotional decision to believe it or not. What is your evaluation? Let me change the word from favorite to evaluation.
My thing is the mayor, whoever that may be, is still one vote. That person has the same authority and power
as the 44
as the councillors have. My main concern is that the councillors who are elected work with the mayor.
Polarization inside
just work together.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, respect the mandate that the mayor, by getting elected, has been given.
Yeah.
You're going to get some NDPers
and that's wrong.
That still won't work with.
It doesn't matter who ends up there in the mayoral position. What matters is respect the fact that person was elected there, regardless of who it is, Olivia or Tory or Ford. It doesn't matter. Sure, respect the fact that people spoke And that's where they put the ballot, and that's who they want representing them, and work with that individual.
This is what we experienced in the last 4 years.
No, the last 4 years, as I said, look, in my industry, in real estate, I don't get to choose with who brings the agreements. I have to work with that person to represent my client.
Of course.
If I chose who I got to work with, I wouldn't be selling homes. There'd be problems for my clients, and I wouldn't have a job. But at City Hall, you can get away with this type of behavior.
Oh, and with a good salary. Now, I give you 1 minute each. If you want to speak to camera, you speak to me, doesn't matter, camera picks up. Let's say, assume that millions of people are watching it.
Millions, huh?
And tomorrow they are going to vote. What is your message? Why should they choose you? What do you bring to the table? Let me put it this way.
Well, what I would bring to the table is primarily counselor response. I will listen with open ears to anyone that brings me a problem, especially those problems that I haven't even heard about yet. As a rookie in politics, I keep getting emails from organizations that I've never even heard of, addressing issues that I didn't even know were issues. And I don't harbor any arrogance that I know better than these people that have already studied these issues. There's people out there that this has been their primary issue for months, if not years. So my interest would be in listening to those people so that they will have a voice at council, so that they have some representation, and if they can bring me their problems and I can take those problems before council, I'd be more than happy to do so.
Hold on.
The one thing I'd like to focus on, and we touched on in the very beginning, and we almost got there when we were talking about the issue regarding taxation and foolish spending, is revenue streams. It's the one thing that I'm bringing to the table that I haven't heard any other candidates speak of, and I haven't heard anybody in the mayoral candidacy speak of. As a city and as representatives of the public, we should be doing the utmost we can to find revenue streams that don't involve taxation, ticketing, permit fees, or saving money through cutting services. And they're out there. Green P parking. Somebody steal this idea. If I get elected into power, one of the first things I do at City Hall is I'm going to introduce revenue streams. We're going to start with Green P parking. Why don't we sell advertising space in Green P parking? There's tons of parking. You have a target audience, people who can afford cars, afford gas, afford insurance, and are going somewhere where they don't have a space, and it's likely going to cost something for them to do business there or to spend time there leisurely. We could advertise. We could sell advertising space there. It's not a gold mine, but it's a start. TCHC, in the last 2 years, we've sold 80 houses south of Bloor. Of course, people are buying them. Why? Because they're gems. It's hard to find houses in the core of the city, south of Bloor Street or south of the DVP. Now, we can't leave them in the hands of the TCHC. They're vacant properties. We won't be displacing anybody. Fix the properties. Put people to work fixing the properties. Rent them out at full market value. Take care of them, and they're going to pay you for the life of the city. TTC buildings. We've got 6 in my ward. They're all 1 story high. One of the main things about selling income properties, is what I specialize in, is how close is the property to the subway station. Put a 2nd story. Put the space up for lease. Build it to spec. Only do so after you've had somebody sign a deposit check and sign an agreement. Lease the premise above for office space, for retail space, a doctor's office perhaps. We have solutions that can bring money into the city coffers down at City Hall, and we don't use them. We go digging into your pockets first, and it's the wrong way to go about things. That, for me, is the one thing I'm bringing that I'm not hearing about, and I believe there is growth there. These are issues that I've recognized within my industry and my thinking, but there are other councillors, carpenters, other professional individuals, just like you mentioned that wood structure on Ferris Road. This is your profession. If we bring this type of thinking to council, other people will walk around who sit on council, and they'll recognize revenue streams as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Thank you. I hope people watch it, and as I said at the beginning of our conversation, this series of Video that we have done for last 10 months, and our last one will be the one after the election, will be a good point of reference for those people that going to the ballot boxes and mark their X, and I hope they do it responsibly. First, I want to thank both of you that you were very gracious to accept my invitation, came here, and were candid. I hope that was no difficult, not much hard for you guys.
You scared me in the beginning. I asked straight questions. You know, I'm not.
No, I am not going. I'm not. I just ask questions. But some people, again, I have dealt with the people from the city or from the provincial government that they are very restrict in their approach. Thank you very much for being with us. Please don't forget, get engaged, participate, vote, be volunteer, help your candidates, and if it is possible, become a candidate. Good night.
Thank you.
Something that you are not is a